If you're a high-achieving woman who's exhausted by stress, stuck in constant conflict, and tired of being overlooked in the exact rooms where you know you were born to lead, then this podcast is for you. So here's your host, Pallavi Jain.
Welcome to Her Boss Brain, the podcast where we rewire from stress to success by understanding how our inner technology really works. I'm your host and friend, Pallavi Jain, HR leader, speaker, and neuroscience nerd who believes your best leadership tool isn't out there, it's within you. Every week, we dive into real conversations with real women who are leading with self awareness, consciousness, purpose, and presence. Because the truth is, your brain doesn't just run your day, it runs your leadership. Today's episode brings that truth to life in a beautiful way. I want to welcome our guest for today, Kim Napolitano, a trailblazer in global hospitality, a conscious leader who truly walks her talk. As Executive Director of Industry Relations and Intermediary Group Sales at Hilton Worldwide, she's known for leading with courage, clarity, and compassion, driving results through strategy, partnership, and of course, heart. Since 2007, she's been an instrumental force at Hilton and a respected voice across the meetings and events industry. Kim serves on multiple global boards and has been honored with the 2024 Smart Meetings Visionary Award and induction into the 2025 Smart Meetings Hall of Fame. And not only that, she's also an ICF certified coach, passionate about conscious leadership, authentic connection, and redefining what leadership looks like today. Welcome, Kim. We are so excited to have you here, and thank you for joining us today.
Pallavi, it's my pleasure. And it's just so heartwarming to hear someone tell your story, right? We just do all of these amazing things, but to hear it reflected back to you, it's a little bit of a feel-good moment. So I feel like everyone should almost give their bio to someone and have them read it back to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was having this conversation yesterday with one more amazing badass woman, and she was like, "We are our best brand ambassadors, but we just don't do that enough." But I am so excited to have you. And for our listeners in this episode, we'll explore what conscious leadership really means in today's fast paced, always on world. We'll talk about how women leaders can find calm in chaos, how to navigate conflict from awareness, and why the most important thing you can do as a leader is to take care of you. Isn't that right? So, Kim, shall we dive in? Are you ready?
Oh, I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So, first of all, I don't know when we last connected. I didn't realize this. And as I was putting this together, I realized you have been at Hilton for 21 years. Wow. That's incredible.
Actually, it's a little bit longer than that. I just celebrated my 32nd year because I started on property. So I've been at the corporate office for over 20 years, but on property, when you take that into account, 3 decades.
Goodness. Okay, that is incredible. So that is, first of all, I think then say that's a testament that Hilton has, to be a great place to work. First of all. So you have a very high impact and high visibility role at Hilton. So how would you describe for our listeners what you do? And I'm not sure if you have one, but what a typical day looks like for you.
The beauty of my job is that no 2 days ever look alike, and that keeps it fun and creative, especially when you have a brain that's working overload for all the right reasons. But I am responsible for understanding the business and trends that are impacting our hotels and our industry and our customers, as well as I have the incredible opportunity to walk alongside 11 amazing human beings who are working with customers who are booking meetings and events around the world. And it's a lot of fun. As I mentioned, no 2 days are ever alike. And the overarching goal for me in this space as a leader is it's twofold. From the industry relations side, is how do I help our customers and the public in general who may be present to whatever information we're putting out there from a meetings and events space is where I represent. So they can see that Hilton is a trusted advisor in whatever topic we're talking about in that moment in time. And for my team members and colleagues and peers and those that I'm working with internally, how do I show up differently that maybe allows them to be inspired?
Yes.
To then motivate them to elevate how they show up. Yes. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's so important that as women leaders, how do we help those we are serving to feel valued, seen, heard, respected, and appreciated? Because when our team members are feeling this way, when the people we are surrounded by and working alongside feel this way, the energy that then swells and the ripple effect that happens to lift up the organization. Because at that point, for me, you're leading from a place of culture, which is exactly our focus within this company, within Hilton. Our CEO is a staunch believer in Peter Drucker, who's considered the father of modern management. And his theory, culture eats strategy every day for breakfast.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just listening to you. It's like, when you have a leader like that who have all these qualities and is intentional about how they're showing up in these rooms, it's just so inspiring. And we need so many leaders like you. But as you mentioned, you have these twofold, very important, roles that you're playing. So what's something, which I'm sure there is something, but what's something people often don't realize about what it takes to lead at that level, especially inside a global hospitality brand?
Yeah. Pallavi, I would say it, the thing here to identify is the need
Yeah.
for presence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as leaders, if we can embrace the beauty and the power of the pause, which allows us as leaders to think and regroup, possibly even refresh mentally, it allows the people we're engaging with to do the exact. I think what people don't understand is that it can be exhausting being in this state of presence
Yes.
for quite some time throughout the day. So the question is then how do you give back to yourself so you can continue to give back to others?
So true, so true. And that is such a wonderful reminder that, even if sometimes we know what we need to do, but sometimes we don't do it. And it's so like those tiny moments of presence really add up. So let's go deeper into the heart of what drives you, the conscious leadership concept, and that you teach and preach and follow yourself. So I know you're a strong advocate of conscious leadership. And I know we have had several conversations about that. But for someone hearing that term for the first time, how would you define it, in a simple and practical terms?
Someone who is coming from a place of self-awareness, mindfulness, something I refer to as compassionately honest,
Yeah,
and an uncanny ability to empower their teams. To me, that's the definition of a conscious leader.
I love that. And so many powerful and important words you mentioned there, starting with self-awareness, which is kind of the heart of, I think, conscious leadership, and then how you're showing up for others, because I think that's part of how you are spreading that consciousness more than just existing within you, that it starts from you, right? So I know I have had my own self-transformation journey and how I've, now do this work that I do, but what inspired you on your journey into conscious leadership? And was there a moment or like an experience that kind of became your turning point?
I don't know if it was any one particular moment that I can pinpoint. I
Yeah.
think it was a buildup to a moment in my life where in 2019, I knew that there was something more
Yeah.
than just what I was doing. And I felt like I was on autopilot. And I loved my career with this organization, and they've taken such good care of me. And I feel like I've given back to them very thoughtfully. So it's been this beautiful relationship.
Yes.
And I knew that there was something else that I could do to better serve the people I was serving, I was leading. And I remember talking to a girlfriend about this, saying, I just don't, there's something more, there's something more. And she goes, what about getting a coach? I have this great executive coach. You should talk to my coach, Jane, have a conversation with Jane. I was like, okay.
Hmm.
So then I had this beautiful conversation with Jane, and she said, well, Kim, what is it you want to achieve through this conversation? And I said, I feel like there's something bigger out there that I cannot put my finger on, and I need help getting there. So I share all of that because from 2019, now we're into 2025. I've been on this sincere personal growth
It's
journey
beautiful.
to say, how do I show up better? How do I show up in a more meaningful way? But Pallavi, here's the trick.
Yeah.
It was for me.
Yes.
Like I needed to ask, how do I show up better for me? How do I go back onto Team Kim? So
Yep.
that way when Team Kim is present with her direct reports and colleagues and peers and customers or whomever, that I'm showing up as a better version of myself, which then in theory, right, the ripple effect and lifting up, it helps to lift up those around me that I'm engaging with.
That is so true. And I think, again, there's something powerful you mentioned here, which I often say, but I would like to take a pause and kind of say it again, what you just mentioned, that it was kind of your own curiosity, I believe, and your own self-awareness that, no, I need more. There is something more I'm not. I have everything is going great, actually. Nothing have to fall apart for us to have that reflection, which is a great point you just mentioned, right? It could just come as that intentional desire to even look for what's out there and what is it something that I feel something is missing, right? And that you took action. You actually took inspired action to do something about it, which is a lot what we talk about in this space as well, that knowing is great, but only knowing is not enough. We need to translate that into those inspired action, into believing in yourself and kind of jumping into that inner development, and that any kind of leadership starts with you. So you just hit a nerve for me there, because I preach that a lot, because that has been my journey too, because there were years that I would just consuming knowledge, but nothing was really changing because I wasn't applying it. I felt like, oh, I'm this great person because now I know about all this stuff, but nobody was seeing the change or behaving in a different way because duh, I was still doing the same thing. So this brings us to, because I also feel, as a world, as a community, as a work environment, how work culture and everything is shifting, we're literally in a space where the world that's moving faster than ever. With AI, there's a constant change. Everything is changing on a day-to-day basis, not like year basis, and so much uncertainty. So because we're talking about inner development, why do you think it's essential for leaders to, again, invest in their own inner development? And
Mhm.
from your experience, are most leaders truly aware of this? You know?
I don't know if they're aware of it. I
Yeah.
think we're so accustomed to be in the right job. I've done this, I've delivered that. I live in the right neighborhood or the right zip code to get my kids into the
Yeah.
right school districts. I'm networking at the right places. I think we're just so programmed to do what we think we're supposed to do without listening to what's within us.
That's right.
And you had mentioned about the need to take action. And I took a shamanic training class. It was amazing. It was an
Yeah.
energetic master practitioner energetic course. And I learned the difference because there's the head knowledge, right? So that's the intellect and the beautiful
Yep.
brain.
Yep.
And then there's the wisdom center, which sits in the heart. And so for me, this is the learned consciousness in the brain, but the
Yes.
earned consciousness, where all the hard work and effort, the sweat equity, it all sits for me within the heart.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're putting the muscle behind what you're trying to do, what you're trying to enact. And we've all, Pallavi, sister, I know we've seen these people where they're like,
Yes.
oh, I meditated on a mountain and I did all these great things, and that's amazing. But then they get in the workforce and then it's like
Back
they're
to
a chicken
zero.
with their head cut off, right? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh. So what is that saying to people? She's trying
Yes.
to be evolved, yet she's running around like a not so stable individual.
Yes.
And so back to all of that, I think a lot of leaders are trying to do the right thing,
I
but
know.
they don't
Yeah.
know how to go about doing the thing
Yep.
that will serve them best.
No, that is absolutely, absolutely true. And it just reminded me of all those conversations I've had in all these years, even as an HR leader, where I'm like, come on, we need to do this. We can't just keep doing the same thing we've been doing for years, but they just don't get it sometimes. And it's not their fault. I think that awareness is growing, and we need leaders. That's why I keep coming back to that. Like, we need leaders, intentional leaders who are in the workforce currently, who understand the value of this, because that's the only way this consciousness can spread, more than what it is right now. And it is definitely growing. We are no longer talking about just performance or the external things that we need to do, but all really about the presence. So, but first of all, that really resonates with me, because I just remembered something. It was in one of my session recently. I asked the leaders, when was the last time you upgraded yourself, not your software or your strategy, but your self-awareness? And literally one participant said to me, she was like, honestly, I haven't even thought about that. Like, I'm just too busy upgrading everything else around me. And kind of what you just said, that is like just so true for most of us, because we're constantly optimizing systems, constantly optimizing the external things, external gadgets, or, whatever softwares that we need, but rarely optimizing this inner system that literally drives them all, which is our mindset. And kind of what you mentioned, I love the concept behind, and we actually, both of us, I think, talk about that, is the heart mind coherence, like how that really matters. And that's really bringing your whole self. So, bringing this back to, since you've been at Hilton for so long, and we know that hospitality is an industry which is built on serving others, but yet so many leaders forget to serve themselves. So, is that frustrating now that you understand the importance of it? Like, do you get that sense of frustration? I know you're a very conscious person and you probably shut it off, but do you get those waves of, oh my God, like, do you get that?
We're all human. So
Yeah.
I can't say I'm Buddha, floating and levitating through my day. Like I am a human being who can have moments. The question is, do I recognize in that moment that I've gotten to that moment? And that's where I think the beauty of self-awareness and then mindfulness comes in. And if you as a leader are engaging with your team where you're demonstrating on a regular basis, we have to be consistent and
Yes.
how we are engaging with our teams. And so when you create this culture of compassionate honesty, not only is it for when I see something my team member is doing where I pull them aside, and ultimately I call it the girlfriend or the boyfriend everyone wants and needs in their life. Hey, you've got some food in your teeth. Here's the floss. The bathroom's 2 doors down on the right.
Yeah.
There's no judgment in that statement. The only thing is, hey, I see a situation. Here are tools to rectify it, and I'm giving you directions on how to get there. You
That's
choose to
beautiful.
take advantage of that or not.
Yeah.
And so when we are surrounding ourselves with people who can do that for us and or we can do it for them, it allows us to get back into the state of presence. I'll give you a great example. I love my team members. They're amazing. And I was
Yes.
on a call with one of my team members, and I think she sensed something. She goes, okay, Kim, I just need to tell you something, but I don't want it to trigger you.
Oh my God. Okay.
Can I tell you, Pallavi, that just allowed me to exhale. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, thank you. Thank you for planting my feet back on the ground in a very
Yes.
thoughtful, loving
Yes.
way so I could be fully present and focused in on what you're sharing with me. And by her doing that, it alerted me to the fact that there's going to be something in this conversation that's going to probably irritate me. And I
Exactly.
need to just slow my roll and I need to be mindful. And I now need to start thinking of from a place of curiosity. Instead
Yes.
of defensiveness, instead of frustration or anger, I need to say, that's interesting. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. And it's amazing how that little shift can change the whole conversation. So that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that example. And I know that our teams mean well, our leaders mean well, and people who are around us. But the fact of the matter is, everybody is super stressed, exhausted, burnt out. There's just so many gazillion things we have to do, and overstimulation of the whole overload of information that goes in today's world. So that probably gets in the way of that conscious leadership of really even realizing what's happening, because we run, right? So that does make inner anchoring even more critical, no?
Yeah, yeah. I think if we can pull back in the conversation and understand one thing. So the beauty of the different types of training I've taken since, the start of basically 2021 moving
Yes.
forward and the different type of modalities and coaching methods I've learned, we we have the beautiful gift of the lizard brain, the amygdala, and
Yes.
you are the expert in this space. But I call her Lily Lizard, and she
Yes.
loves to chatter in the back of everyone's brain. So you could have a Larry lizard or a Lily lizard or whatever you want to name your lizard. But that little lizard is constantly trying to protect you. And
Yes.
for me, Lily Lizard has done her best to get me into the place where I am today. However, there are many times where she's not serving my best need. And so if I can then realize, wait a minute, if I'm hearing this chatter in my brain, everyone else is hearing their own
Absolutely.
version in their
Yeah.
brain. So essentially, we're all operating from a central lens of fear and what I would call a survival mechanism. And so the question is, how do I, one, recognize that I'm there? And two, what are things I can do? What are tools or tricks, tips that I can immediately embrace to get me in the space of the realization of I'm not being chased by a bear. Like I'm in my home, at the end of the
Exactly.
day, I've got water, I've got air, I've got a roof over my head. Life, for the most part, is very good.
Yep.
And when we can get to that space of when we can exhale, Pallavi, that's when I've seen where we can just kind of quiet down the nervous system to then again allow us to come from a place of curiosity versus assumption.
Yep.
Curiosity versus I go into fear.
Yeah, and that is so true. And as you were talking about it, it just reminded me. I know if I mentioned it to you, but I actually did a session for a hotel chain because it's so relevant with Hilton. You probably will resonate with that. And what they did was, we did the Lead from Within workshop for them. And so we were facing a hotel group that was facing issues of low accountability, constant team conflicts, and slip in guest experience, basically. And when we uncovered in the workshop, it was so powerful that the real issue wasn't the skill or strategy, it was stress and inner conflict. Their managers were literally so depleted that they couldn't show up with clarity or connection. Exactly what we have been talking about, that it has to start from them. But the other issue is that energy spread through through their teams, which literally hurt collaboration, performance directly. And it just reminds me, and I'm sure you have read that report. So there was this recent report that came out for workforce stats global report, and it showed that the top result of that report was that middle managers and directors, not the C-suite, not the entry level, are actually the most disengaged and exhausted group at work. And
Mm-hmm.
you and I both know that's a huge concern because they are the heartbeat of any organization, making everything happen, in the day to day. So it is so important. And we also know that people leave organizations because of their managers. So, how do you, because you know the importance of this work and you are kind of in so many ways, so many areas at Hilton, how do you help your managers understand that how they show up for others starts with how they show up for themselves?
We've been proudly recognized. I love singing the praises of what our company has achieved recently since
Yes.
2016, making the world's best place to work list. And most recently in 23, we were recognized to celebrate 24, the number one best place to work in the world. And in
Amazing.
24, recognized as the number two best place to work in the world. And when you think of that, you're like, wow, that's a global hospitality company. We're not
Exactly.
talking, the sexy IT
Yep.
software tech company. It's like, but we are an organization of people serving people, and we are a mission driven organization. And I say all of this because when I think of middle management, I think of these people who are probably in their maybe late 30s, but early 40s going into potentially their 50s, like somewhere around there. And so if I had to put most everyone into some sort of a generation, I would say you're talking about Gen Xers to some millennials in that mix.
Yes.
And one of the common things that this generation, especially Gen X, is dealing with is we're being sandwiched. We've
Yep.
got we've got children that we're helping to fly out of the coop, help them live their best lives. And then we're dealing with aging parents. And what the World's Best Place to Work Trust Index does is they
Yes.
analyze an employee's experience through the lens of 5 dimensions, and 3 of which are directly related to their supervisor, their leader, their
Yes.
direct manager. And that's credibility, respect, and fairness. So I share that because as a leader, if we can lean into credibility, respect, and fairness, what are things we can do? What are actions we can take to demonstrate credibility, respect, and fairness consistently to our team members? Because when these people feel that they are in a place of I feel valued, I feel heard, respected, appreciated, the retention is significant. These companies are 11 times more likely to have high retention.
Wow, that's
When these
incredible.
yeah, when we're in that space, because this is being led by purpose, so it's
Yes.
culture driven, the organizations are 3 times more likely to meet or exceed financial targets, 10 times more likely to have higher level of customer satisfaction scores, and 11 times more likely to have high team member retention rate. And it's fascinating to me because you talked about people quit jobs because of their bosses.
Yes.
Society for Human Resource Management, otherwise known as SHRM, they
Yeah.
identified in a recent study 53% of Americans have identified at least at one point in life in their career journey, they quit a job because of their leader. It had nothing to do with whether or not they were qualified for the job or not. It had everything to do with the fact that they had they gave their boss at that moment in time a no confidence vote, and they were not interested in trying to repair that.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, even in my HR career and all the stats that come out, I mean, it is fascinating when you actually look at it and how people just neglect that. But you said something powerful there. So I'm going to repeat those three words that you said for our listeners, that all my executive friends here who are listening, that she talks about credibility, respect, and fairness. Those three qualities, if you can take an intentional moment, just pause and think about how you're showing up in these three areas for your teams. That could mean a lot for you and for your team and the relationships that you're building. Now, these are things that the executives can do on their end. The other issue, Kim, I see is also the top leadership, who we have talked about, right? Sometimes don't understand the meaning and the importance of this work. So, because you're so powerful and you're so, you've done so much work on this, I'm curious, like, how do you make sure that, or how should I put it? How do you get top leadership to truly invest in inner leadership for their managers? Because they have been busy recycling the same old trainings that haven't changed in 15 years, to be very honest. And it is frustrating to me on my end when I see that they just want to keep doing the same thing in a cyclical manner and then wonder why nothing changes.
Einstein's definition of insanity right there.
Exactly.
Well, I think, Pallavi, some of those, it has to start at the top. And so if you've got a senior leader who doesn't have a desire or see the value in this, then there's only so much you can do, right? You can modify your approach. You can be the bright, shiny star within the organization to demonstrate and be that ripple effect internally. But to have an entire organization shift, I mean, that starts at the C suite. And I'm very fortunate within Hilton, we just launched our leadership capabilities because, as a, again, global organization,
Yes.
being recognized the way we are, we know that we're doing something different. And so we've quantified what that different is. And so it's helping leaders at all different levels within the organization understand, what does it mean? I'm using the term conscious leadership. We use a different term internally within Hilton, but it is, how do we bring to life this sense of presence, this sense of giving our team members a space of choice and control? Because I think that's where the beauty of credibility, respect, and fairness comes in from. It's like, how do we help put our people back in a place of empowerment?
Yes. Yes. No,
And
that is absolutely true.
yeah,
And you use
it's
the
not
word
easily done. Yeah, I was going to say, this doesn't happen overnight. It's these small steps, one foot in front of the other.
I was just going to say, you use the word consistency and just doing those small steps, consistently. Because I think as Hilton, because you have built that culture, and it is because of that consistent action and leadership who values that, right? That you're building that culture. Now, I see this often in the organizations I work with too, because, I mean, to be very honest, this is also the reason I love what I do, because, and you probably, because when you learn your inner technology and how this great human gadget works, I have seen most of my managers realize that they had been leading from depletion, not intention. And they are amazed that how much we don't know about how we operate, how this brain works, how our body works, and literally the most important thing, our perception, which is the lens of how we interact with the external world. So it is amazing to see, though, that when one person steadies their nervous system in the team, the whole team starts to act differently. So I would really, really encourage, listeners, if you're an executive, this is something you want to invest in for your teams, and you want to make sure that you're being intentional about it. I mean, you're throwing out thousands of dollars for all the trainings that you've been doing and has not shifted anything. It's worth at least giving it a shot and see how your people respond. Because that's what you need to see, right? How people are responding, what's really happening in the organization, and do they feel that you actually care about them? That's how you become the great place to work, just like Hilton is. But you work, across many cross-functional areas. So you work in events, contracts, travel, and many more that probably I'm not listing here. But can you share an example just so people also see or hear what impact it could have. Like, I'm sure you have several examples, but can you share an example of a leader who truly changed how they led once they started understanding this conscious leadership or just starting anchoring within themselves?
Yes, and I will use myself as an example. Uh,
Perfect.
but instead of coming from a place of complete feeling that you're always on the hamster wheel,
Yes.
no matter what you do, you're good enough is never enough. And then almost playing whether just sitting somewhere in the triangle of disempowerment, right? Somewhere I was operating at any point in time. I have seen by anchoring within, it's allowed me to get from living in the space of the comfort zone, as I'll call it, to now being in a place of unlimited possibilities.
Beautiful.
It's been a beautiful gift, a beautiful ride for me, beautiful experience. And to see how my team and how those people I'm mentoring have evolved on their own personal journeys, it's been so rewarding for me to just, it allows me to relax back into myself, knowing that this is in alignment with who I am.
And that is beautiful. If you can do that and your teams recognize that, which you have already shared an example with us, how that she felt safe, in that moment, even the example you shared, she felt safe that she could say that to you. And that's a beautiful relationship to have with your team. We know though that conflict is inevitable in organizations or in life, just hands down. So, have you seen a situation, because you also mentioned mentorship, right? Have you seen a situation where the real issue really wasn't the surface disagreement, but something deeper? You know what I'm talking about. So, those unspoken fears or unmet needs. So, if you could give any specific situation that comes to your mind, maybe?
I would say almost all of the situations we deal with are deeper than what's being
Yes.
presented. It's my experience has demonstrated that time and time again. So that's where, when I can come from a place of curiosity and just tell me more. Well, what caused this? What's happening? Was there anything else? I liken it to the concept of asking what and why multiple
Yes.
times to get me
Yes.
to understand where we are in the process. And again, every situation is unique. So I don't want to, generalize this too much. But I would say a majority of the time, it is the response as they are coming from their fear lens. What
Yep.
exactly is their biggest fear? Because we've all
Okay.
been on those calls or in the meeting room where you're like, whoa, what just happened? And what just caused that person to just take a hard right in this conversation? And then everyone feels uncomfortable. But there's a reason why that person took it that way.
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10, it's related to whatever the operating model is for that person's fear lens. It's probably directly correlated into that. Now, that's not our job to be their therapist and try to figure it out. The question is then, how though do we turn that conversation around? Because as leaders in the space of being mindful and conscious, we need to engage differently with each team member, because how you would like to be engaged with Pallavi could be completely different than the other person I could be speaking to next.
Yep.
So we do a workshop within Hilton that we've shared with our customers. And
Yes.
the exercise we do is the me they need. And we talk about it. What's on your calendar for the next day? What do you need to accomplish? Putting yourself in a place of choice and choosing, who do I want to be in this moment? And
Yes.
you could say, I want to be direct. I want to be honest, thoughtful, compassionate. Well, write those words down. If it's a big conversation, be mindful and understand how you need to show up in the conversation. Because I think when we can go in with the roadmap of who we want to be in the meeting or in that
Yes.
moment in time, and I keep referring to work stuff, but I need everyone to understand this is this transcends work. It is a
Everywhere.
360 of who you
Yes.
are. It is
Yep.
it is you as a human being. But when you're in that space, then it just allows you to have, I think, a more meaningful conversation and accomplish what it is you're trying to accomplish far sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Thank you. This was so golden, what you just mentioned. And I would just, one thing that you mentioned that I want to reiterate again is that a lot of leaders feel like if we're talking about conscious leadership or we're talking about how to lead from within, we're not asking you to become somebody's therapist. That's not what we're saying. It's about you being grounded and you not being swept by their emotion, their reactiveness, and how you can create that grounding presence for them so they can actually see some of their pattern or slow down themselves. Because believe it or not, your energy is contagious. And as a leader, I feel this is an additional thing that leaders have to kind of hone in because their actions not only just impact them, but also people around them. So I just wanted to call that out because that was so important you just mentioned. And that's a very general misconception people have when we're talking about this stuff. But since we have our core audience here is our women leaders and we want to send something back to them specifically, let's first talk about, we're talking about a lot of things here, but for women leaders in particular, what are the two biggest patterns you have observed that hold them back from thriving? And sometimes, and the reason I'm asking this question is sometimes it's important to just call that out, and some people will say, oh yeah, I actually do that.
Three come to mind.
Okay, go for it.
The first is this need to do it all.
Yes.
The
Superwoman.
need, yeah, oh, 100%. And not only do it all, but we have to be perfect. We can make no mistakes. And if we make mistakes, there's such shame, blame, guilt that attacks us.
Yes.
And I would say my last one that comes to mind is that maybe there could be a sense that we're in competition with one another as women against women in the workplace versus women lifting women up in the workplace.
Oh, you hit a nerve there for me because I actually was having a conversation with one of our attorney friend and we were talking about like even for my journey, Kim, last few years, it has been actually I was reflecting it as I was talking to her and I told her that I actually always felt women was women's worst enemy. We have heard that way too many times. But I actually was so grateful that how many women have actually helped me, has uplifted me, have rooted for me, including you and so many more other powerful women. And I was truly reflecting. I think the reason is because throughout our generations, right? It's a generational memory that we are carrying. Women are so prone to pain, to not having enough, to having their cup empty, that when we are empty, we're unable to share. That insecurity, jealousy comes naturally. But now that women are actually recognizing the power within them and that the narrative, what people are saying, what people are, labeling them doesn't matter. It's what they believe, right? If they believe they can do it, they can actually do it. And once they are understanding that their own cup is filling and they're no longer insecure of one another because they know, like, Kim is Kim and Pallavi is Pallavi, right? We both have our own light and we can't dim each other. We can only support and make it brighter. And I feel like that was actually the main reason why I started this podcast because that thought really triggered something in me that we have to encourage more women because it is so empowering to be in this space where you're not in it for competition. You're really in it for helping each other out, learning from one another, and the world needs it. I mean, empathy, cooperation comes naturally to us. That's our innate kind of qualities, but it's been layered with all these insecurities and just the experience women has had all these generations and for years. And I think if we can take that out and create this powerful space and community and feel that we can be who we want to be, the world needs that.
I completely agree.
You know?
I liken it to Maya Angelou when she so poetically stated about it's not what people say to you, it's how they make you feel, right? That's the gist of what she's saying.
Yeah.
And we it, ultimately we don't make people feel one way or the other. Like they're just processing through their
Their own
mind.
lens.
Yeah, their own lens. And but when you can come from a place of demonstrating credibility, respect, and fairness in any form, whether it's personal or professional, how that person is receiving you is from a lens of I feel valued, seen, heard, respected, and appreciated. And so there's this undercurrent that we don't talk about, which is your personal brand. And
Yes.
we've all seen those like, oh, that great position opened up, but you know what? I'm not going to go for it because I know who the
Yep.
leader is. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Or, oh my gosh, look at the opportunity that just came on that team. I'm going to apply. I really want it because they feel that people are just so hungry
Yes.
to be connected in with leaders who are willing to lift them up in a space that allows them to grow and gives them that sense of psychological safety. And I don't know if that word's overused or not, but there's just a sense of connection
Oh,
and
absolutely.
safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just bringing it back to you because you're such a great ambassador because you live what we're talking about is I know you're balancing a demanding role yourself. So, what are some practical things you personally do to stay grounded, centered, and fulfilled?
Well, I had a great conversation last week with my executive coach, Carrie, and we were chatting about conditions of satisfaction. And I
Yeah.
wrote a little LinkedIn article, well, not even an article, it's just a post on it because it resonated with me. And I'm like, oh, well, hopefully this resonates with other people. But it's just defining if we're in a space of understanding what brings us satisfaction, then whatever activity we're engaged in, we can reflect on, is this meeting a majority of the criteria for my conditions of satisfaction? So whether you apply that to your relationships, you apply that to your family and personal connections, to your job, to your volunteer work outside of the office, whatever that looks like, it's just,
Yes.
what do you know will bring satisfaction? Because I think that's one thing we just go and we're not thinking. We're just like, oh no, this will be good. And there are certain things that resonate with you and other things that may fall flat for you. But
Yes.
then we get into somewhere where, oh my gosh, I'm constantly having a rub. What is this about? What is this about? So when we can then define what are the conditions of satisfaction for that particular situation, it allows you then to create the roadmap, putting you personally as an individual back in the place of empowerment. So then you can come from a place of choice. What choices do I want to make to either bring me back in or to make a change because it's too far gone down the road?
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of other things I do. Another thing I do is a clearing exercise
Okay.
because Pallavi, I would love to say I jump out of bed 6 a.m. in the morning. I
We
look in the
don't.
mirror
We
and I'm
don't.
like, I am beautiful, like crazy bedhead and everything. It's like, I wish I could say that, but there are moments when we wake up and the brain is immediately processing the day, what's
Yes.
happening, or the
Yes.
week, or the pressures. And I think we can all agree, we're all dealing with a tremendous amount of pressure. I think more so than we ever thought. But
Yeah.
like in today's day, it's very interesting
Yep.
what we're all experiencing. So this just allows you to write all of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, get it all out. Like, what are you feeling? What are you saying in your brain? Get it all out. And then what are you going to declare for yourself for the day? How am I going to show up? Who am I going to be throughout the day? And you get to pick it, whether it's a word or a phrase or a full sentence, but then you identify it and then you lean into it. Again, it's creating your roadmap. It's helping
Yes.
give you guidance. It's your GPS to get
Yep.
you through the day.
Yep, I love it. I love a morning ritual and I abide by it myself because that's one thing I keep telling my women leaders here. If you don't do anything that I've been talking about, all these episodes, one thing, if you can just take and please try it, even for like 2 weeks and see what happens, is a morning ritual. Make it your own. Do whatever works for you. What is it? If it's journaling like Kim, setting intention, whatever it is, but spend some time with yourself and pick your morning ritual. It is just so powerful. And I myself feel that has truly changed my life. Just that one action, if you could just even take that. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that, I have so many more things that I can keep talking to you about, but what would you like to leave our listeners with, like one call to action or one thing that they can start doing differently tomorrow? Would it be? And what is the best way our listeners can reach out to you?
Oh, well, I'll answer the last part of the question first. LinkedIn, Kimberly Napolitano, you'll find me there on LinkedIn. Love to connect that way. And to answer the first part of your question, I would say I would call it getting back to your being.
Yeah.
So if you were to have 5 to 10 people say, hey, Pallavi, when you walk in the room, this is what walks in with you. These are the traits that I know to expect. Because we look at ourselves one way, but our what we would call an outside reporter, someone that you know and trust, whether they're a work colleague or they're someone that you volunteer with or your loved ones, whatever. Understanding how they see who you are, you can identify what are the 5 consistent traits that you see through all of the information you receive. And then when you're in that space of like the amygdala is in high alert, right? And she's running around trying to take over your workday. What are ways that you can bring yourself back to who you know you are through how people see you? And that could be as simple as just listening to music, going for a walk.
Simple
Honestly,
things.
simple thing, hug a tree. Like, I don't want to sound too woo-woo-y in this whole conversation, but there's so much science, there's so much data to back being in nature and the power of nature and reconnecting with yourself.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Both of them so powerful. I actually midday, I actually sit down and sit on the ground with crossed legs around 2, 3 o'clock if I can. It just have become like this another ritual and just helps me so much grounding with the science that we both know is beautiful. Well, thank you. These are 2 amazing things you just mentioned. That's very easy, folks, that you can start today and see the effect, what happens, make it your own. But I just want to thank you again, Kim, for this beautiful reminder that leadership isn't about control. It's really about consciousness. It's about being aware of how you're showing up, not just in the big moments, but in the small ones. Because the energy you bring into a room is the culture you create. So, if there's one thing you take away from today's episode, let it be this. Before you lead your team, lead your state of mind. Be conscious, pause, and take charge. And you know how to apply the ATM. We have been talking about the step number 1A, the whole episode. Arrive in the moment, how you pause, you breathe. Then you go to the T, take responsibility for your energy. And M, make a conscious choice. That's your ATM at work, right? And thank you for listening to Her Boss Brain. Thank you again to Kim for this lovely conversation. And if this conversation resonated with you, share it with another woman who's ready to lead from within. Until next time, I'm Pallavi, helping you train your boss brain from stress to success.
So that's it for today's episode of Her Boss Brain podcast. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in a grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 private VIP day with Pallavi herself. Be sure to head on over to herbossbrainpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Pallavi's gift and join us next time.